Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Monir El Azzouzi from easymedicaldevice.com. And today we wanted to have a discussion about custom-made devices. So we talked a lot about normal devices, so where we have to get a notified body, register, etc., get a technical file. But there is a special case, which is custom-made devices. And some people are not really understanding how this is working. So we'll try to explain that to you with Erik Vollebregt. So Erik, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Thanks for having me again, Monir. I feel a bit like furniture by now, which is also often custom made, at least in the old days.
Exactly. So custom made is something that is not new. It was already existing before with MDD, but I think there are some changes with MDR. So I think we have really to cover, if I can say, those kind of topics. Erik, first, in terms of custom made. Do we have a definition, or how can we make a definition to people to say, here is what is a custom made? Because I think this is difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually the reason why, as you said, we already had the concept of custom made devices in the MDD, the old directive. But what people often forget is that we also had guidance on what a custom-made device is in the oldest MedDev guidance ever produced, the first MedDev from 1994, that already discusses guidance for interpretation of the concept of custom-made devices. And it even already has some of the elements that in the guidance that the MDCG has now recycled in its new guidance on custom-made devices. But let's first go to the definition.
Yeah, I think it would be a good reminder.
There is a definition because the MDR has lots of definitions, lots more than actually in the MDD. And it's actually, I think, one of the more complex definitions, because it's one of those with some elements and then some additional paragraphs. So it's really it's a tricky one. So it's in Article 2, Section 3. So the definition is any device.
Yeah.
Always have your MDR handy.
Exactly.
I love
small
mine
format,
so much.
pocket format.
Yeah. This is a really good one. Also with one of these nice ring binder thingies. Anyway, so it's any device, and that's an interesting one, because everything that fits in the definition of device under the MDR can be a custom-made device. So as we were just discussing before the recording started, that can mean a lot, because these are the devices described in Article 1, Section 4. So that is medical devices, accessories to medical devices, and even
Annex 16
non-medical
products.
devices.
Exactly, Annex 16.
Article, Annex 16 products. So that's quite interesting, that you could even have custom 3D printed vampire teeth implants or something like that. If that's what you like, because they're not medical, right? I mean, they're aesthetic, depending on what your aesthetic preferences are. Let's say you want to look like Alucard from Castlevania, for example. You could also do some nice other Annex 16 devices to go with that, like colored contact lenses and things like that. But yeah, so that could be a custom-made device, even specifically made, says the definition, in accordance with the written prescription. So there has to be some kind of document in writing, so not in saying, but in actually in writing.
So I don't know if any physician or whatever will prescribe these teeth, vampire teeth or whatever, but they can do that as soon as they have some kind of thing. As soon as they're authorized, they can do that.
Yes, exactly. So let's say, for example, I don't know, I might be in terrible psychological pain because I don't look like Alucard from Castlevania, and that somebody authorized under Dutch law to write me a prescription, like a psychiatrist maybe, could decide, okay, Erik really needs some custom-made vampire teeth to end his mental suffering. In that case, theoretically, this is possible.
Okay.
So we need any person authorized by national law. So that can be, that's basically anybody authorized to write a prescription. And this is, that can differ from one member state to another. For example, nurse practitioners in the Netherlands are allowed to write prescriptions for certain medicines and products. So, for example, a nurse practitioner could also be an authorized person. Then the prescription has to be under that person's responsibility, and it has to contain specific design characteristics. So the prescription has to contain something like Erik's vampire teeth should be at least 3 centimeters long, otherwise you won't recognize them as Alucard's vampire teeth, and should be intended for the sole use of a particular patient, don't give them to anybody else except to Erik, exclusively to meet Erik's individual conditions and needs. So it has to be, you could say, pretty specific.
Yeah. So,
and also really geared towards that specific condition. So so that actually that imposes quite some requirements for the prescription.
So this is, I think, one part only of the definition. The best part comes after.
Yes. I was going for a sip of very strong coffee for the rest of the definition.
Yeah.
Because that's the excluding part. Lawyers like to write these really weird things. So you've got a positive definition and then a negative definition. So the negative definition is that if you have mass-produced devices which need to be adapted to meet the specific requirements of any professional user. So, for example, mass-produced devices that needs to be adapted to the specific requirements of professional user could be, for example, 3D printed devices, 3D printed splints, for example. That are used for fitting implants, so drilling splints with holes in it, for example, which are then adapted to meet the specific needs of the user. So quite a lot of these companies, for example, have software suites in which orthopedic surgeons can then adapt the splints exactly to how they like them. For example, the splint can be already be customized for a specific patient, but it might be that the physician says, no, but I want the holes to be drilled at a specific angle. So I want the prefixed drilling holes at a specific angle. That's, for example, so that's one of these characteristics. And if it's devices that are mass produced by means of an industrial manufacturing process, even if it happens in accordance with the written prescriptions, not custom-made devices. So it looks a bit like the hospital exemption from the AT&P regulation that also says if you do mass production in an industrial process, no hospital exemption for you. Same thing here with custom made. So mass production, industrial process. These are the two criteria.
So mass production means you have machine and you produce. When we hear mass production, we think we produce 1 million units per month or per year or whatever. So
well, that depends, because nobody knows what mass production means, and actually even the new NECG guidance is not that clear about it actually.
Because, so if I produce 2 units, it's mass production.
Yeah, well, probably that's a bit low for mass production, but. So what they do is basically they say, well, you have mass production. They refer in that guidance to an IMDRF document that says you have mass production if the medical device is based on standardized dimensions or design. and it's not designated for a specific particular individual, and it's typically produced in a continuous production run or a homogeneous batch.
So yeah.
So it doesn't. So what they do actually is that they give a qualitative definition of what is mass produced, just to avoid the discussion about how many.
Exactly. So I think this is an important point, because we have maybe some manufacturers here that are producing many units of a device, and then they are adapting the device, or they are making it fit, or they are making it working. So in that case, it's not custom made, it's mass produced, and then you have to follow the normal route, because there is two routes to follow for normal devices and for custom made devices. It's not the same at all.
Yeah, how I usually explain it to clients and students if I teach about this is that I always explain custom-made devices as one of the more bucolic concepts under the medical devices regulation and also under the MDD, which you can explain by references to history, when amputation was still basically the only way they had to deal with battle-inflicted wounds. So you have a pirate, and the pirate likes to fight in ship-to-ship battle, and then suddenly his leg is shot off. I'm not saying hers, because there weren't that many female pirates, so sorry for that. But anyway, so the leg is shot off, and then a unique Geppetto-like surgeon at the time is sitting down with a unique piece of wood, with a unique little knife, and is carving then a unique peg leg at the unique length for this unique person. That's basically a bit how this concept came about. So for example, or you have somebody with a uniquely deformed foot who goes to a shoemaker for orthopedic shoe wear, and this orthopedic shoe wear manufacturer makes a specific shoe that fits the specific deformities of this foot for this specific person, because nobody has the same deformities. That's basically where this concept is coming from. And of course, it's getting more and more interesting. For example, with customized heart valves and things like that, that are customized at a specific diameter of blood vessels, for example. But if you are, if you're looking at those kinds of products, basically where you have bigger production runs of devices that are made according to specifications that can be specific to that person, but are still standardized in the production process, then under the new definition, it's pretty obvious that you're not a custom-made device anymore. So that's why the MDCG distinguishes between several categories, right? So you've got the patient-specific devices. Yeah. So that's basically the pirate's peg leg that I was just describing. Then you've got the patient-matched devices. These are, for example, typically the surgical splints that I've mentioned that are 3D printed for a specific person, but still they are 3D printed within a design, software design envelope that is validated as such. So within, let's say, for example, if you have a splint for, don't know what this particular bone in your underarm means, but which kids break all the time skateboarding. Yeah. So you've got a surgical splint for that, for example. Then, of course, this will all be done in a specific design envelope, because no child has an arm longer than a meter, for example. So they will validate this product within certain design envelope parameters, and then you can basically make as many as you like in a production run. I've been with clients in their production facility for this kind of stuff, and it's really impressive, because then you can also see that the production process is truly industrial, because they have a whole production line with these big ass 3D printers that just spit out these things pretty quickly for a 3D printer, because for other production processes it's still pretty slow. But So these are the patient-matched ones. And then you also have the adaptable medical devices. These are actually the ones that are also discussed in the really old MedDev. So then typically you have to a crutch that you get from the hospital. If you happened to me all the time when I was still a competitive track and field runner, that you have a running accident again and you almost tear out your whole ankle, and then you go to the hospital and they tape up your foot and they give you these crutches and they have to make them in the right length, and then you can get stuck in revolving doors for a couple of weeks. Lots of fun. And these are typically adaptable medical devices.
So can we say that those three products are custom-made devices, or some of them are not at all?
No, it's basically the really patient-specific ones that are those are the ones that are custom-made devices, because they are made for this person specifically, whereas patient-matched, they are related to this patient in the sense that dimensions are related to the patient, but they're not necessarily made for this patient specifically. Okay. Basically, as I've called it in an old blog post of mine, it's like in-process customization. So you customize something in the production process, but it doesn't mean that it's a unique product for a unique person. It's basically just tweaking production parameters during the production process. Okay.
As we said, so we have two types. We have normally a certain pathway to follow for custom-made devices. Before, we had no intervention of notified bodies. So we had to create some kind of documentation, which is a statement saying that everything is fine, we are following the regulation, and we have all documents to prove that for each device. And now with the MDR, there is a small modification also, is that the notified body will be needed also for a certain type of devices. So is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it's because basically the way it works with custom-made devices is that under the MDD, you needed to do an Annex 8 declaration. Under the MDR, it's an Annex 13 declaration. But nobody is really looking at the way you produce these devices, right? Because it's all exposed oversight by the competent authority. The only thing you need to do as a custom-made devices manufacturer is notify the competent authority of the fact that you are a custom-made devices producer, and then you provide them yearly lists, for example, of the devices made. But nobody is actually doing a proper quality, a proper facility audit, if you are even capable of making custom-made devices reliably. And there is a bit of a paradox there, right? Because on the one hand, you're not doing serial production, so why would you need a quality system? But on the other hand, you do produce devices, you have to produce them reliably. I mean, you can't just reinvent the wheel for every device that you produce. And to sort of, put some quality control in there, they've decided that for implantable class 3 custom-made devices, you need a notified body audit as well, which I think is pretty sensible, actually.
Exactly. And here it's a scope only on the quality management system, because as there is no technical file for a custom-made device, because mainly, as we said, we are not manufacturing all devices the same, so we cannot have a dimension or whatever, because it depends on the patient. So they are really coming to verify the quality management system and then providing you, is it a CE certificate or is it an ISO quality management system certificate for custom-made devices?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, if it would be an ISO certificate, you would need a standard that is certified again, and that's not specified in the MDR. So it's basically an EC certificate.
So EC for custom-made device. I mean, for specifically the scope of your device, but looking only at a quality management system. So it's something that is interesting here.
Yeah, but then still, you were saying that there is no technical documentation. So, but if you look in Annex 13, it's still pretty detailed on what you need to do, and especially, I mean, it has to contain a statement that the general safety and performance requirements in Annex 1 are met.
Yeah.
So it's almost technical documentation light, you could say, right?
Almost, but you have to do it for each device that you are performing. So it's not like you do it for a series of devices. You have to do it each time you are manufacturing a new device.
Yeah, and that leads to a situation that, of course, nobody is going to rewrite Annex 1 for every single. Well, let's say I'm the Geppetto that makes peg legs for pirates with my unique little knife from unique pieces of wood. I'm not going to rewrite my whole Annex 1 for each new peg leg that I do. So I will have a template for this, where I only need to fill in, like, the pirate's leg was this long and I used oak wood or birch wood. Probably not birch.
You will not redo biocompatibility. You will not redo all the tests because you will not redo a risk management because the risk is the same. So when it's that you have really one document, you copy paste, if I can say this one, for each of the products, which is understandable. So in terms of the documentation, so you maintain them, so you don't send that to the authorities until maybe they ask you to send that. So if I can say, nobody's reviewing that until maybe somebody asks for it.
And typically they ask for it if you have some very unhappy patients, which can happen with class 3 implants, for example. If you get your production process wrong, like, for example, I don't know, you get standard post-operative infections for custom-made heart valves or something like that. So that wouldn't be nice.
Yeah. So as we say, when everybody is happy, there is no issue. But when somebody is unhappy, then starts the problems. And normally we have also one person, the same as a normal manufacturer. We have to have also a PRRC within our organization. So it's a bit, or it's something that is needed. And there is also a difference here with the requirements for a PRRC for custom-made devices.
Yeah, that's also something that custom-made manufacturers tend to forget a lot. The MDR is set up a bit differently from the MDD, because the MDR has this nice Article 10 for the Lord of the Rings nerds, the ring to bind them all.
Yeah,
right. This is basically the article that keeps the whole MDR together, if you will. And this Article 10. And the whole MDR actually applies to custom-made devices as well. So you only need to do something where or you only need to not do something where the provision in the MDR says this doesn't apply to custom-made devices, and usually also devices for clinical investigation. So PRC, Article 15, that's also applicable for custom-made devices. And there is something interesting indeed with the custom-made devices PRC, because the custom-made devices PRC has different qualification requirements. Yeah. And the difference in qualification requirements is that the PRC for a custom-made device may demonstrate the requisite expertise referred to in the first subparagraph. So thou shalt have a competent PRC by having at least 2 years of professional experience, and now here it comes, within a relevant field of manufacturing.
Yeah.
Clinical expertise? Nah. Medical expertise? Nah. As long as you know how to 3D print or 3D mill or I don't know, laser sinter or something like that. Yeah, fantastic. You can make, then you are a true Geppetto, and you can make a custom-made device, or you can be a PRC, then you know what you talk about.
Exactly. I mean, on the first requirements for a normal device, it's 1 year of experience. On this one, it's 2 years, but apparently, even me, I have never worked on a custom-made device company. I mean, I worked on some, but if I have never worked on some custom-made device companies, I am still qualified because I have knowledge on relevant, if I can say, manufacturing area.
I could be a PRC for custom-made devices. I can program a bit, and I've been digging around with 3D printers for some time. So hey, I have relevant experience. I have experience in a relevant field of manufacturing.
So if you need anyone
experience. But since I've been doing this to get some understanding of how this works for my work, might be professional experience. I mean, This is a weird low threshold, actually.
Yeah. So if you need a new one, you can call Erik Vollebregt. He can help you for this function. Then
I will 3D print your vampire teeth. No problem.
We have also Article 23 on components, parts, replacement of devices. So is this also applicable for custom-made devices?
Well, that's an interesting question, because one of the things that I think the MDCG guidance puts a lot of attention to is, can you have a custom-made device that is made up out of components?
Okay.
Because as I said, basically where the custom-made devices come from is like, I make a unique orthopedic shoe. I make a unique pirate's peg leg, so to speak. But of course, custom-made devices have gotten way more complicated. And the MDR has got quite a number of provisions on that can apply if you knock one thing together from a couple of constituent other things. It can be procedure pack, can be a system, but a system can also be a device by itself, and or a device by itself can have replaceable components. So what the MDCG says is, yes, this is totally possible that you have a custom-made device that is actually comprised of different components, which may also include medical devices and components. And if you have components that can wear, then you are squarely in Article 23. Yeah. So, for example, I've really given it some thought to see if I could come up with an example, because unfortunately they don't really give examples in the guidance on this point. But I thought, so let's say, for example, I am an avid hunter and I'm cleaning my hunting gun like I do every Saturday night before I go hunting on Sunday. I forgot that my gun is still loaded and then shoot off half of my face. Then and so let's say then, for example, completely like $6 Million Man, like very old TV series, Boys and Girls. Yeah. Somebody makes a custom-made device that basically partially replaces my face, but also has a device fitted in, which is a camera that goes into my optic nerve and allows me to see again. So then I have a nice, and that all fits exactly in the unique hole that Erik shot in himself while cleaning his hunting rifle on a Saturday night. So then, on a prescription of my very concerned doctor, and that way you could actually have a nice custom-made device that has a device in it, because let's say the optical nerve interface and camera actually something that exists already, actual medical devices that is fitted into the custom-made device. Since the camera for the optical nerve interface also needs to be powered, we will have batteries in there. So I will be a proper cyborg, yeah. But also completely in Article 23 for the batteries, for example, or if the camera needs to be replaced. So that could be a custom-made device that's actually made out of discrete components, but it could also be a singular device. It could even, depending on how it is made, it could also be if it's made in a specific design envelope, for example. It could be let's say, for example, the company that does this for me is very successful with it. And this is a very nice proof of concept. And then they decide, you know what? This is the shit. We are also going to make this for people that have, that actually lose part of their face because of bone cancer in their skull, which often compromises the eyes as well, by the way. So then you have a fantastic thing, because then they can just make MRIs of people and they can basically make standardized versions of this device. And this is interesting in the MDCG guidance, because it says the fact that the device is patient matched based on an MRI scan, which shows the unique patient, that is insufficient to say that it's a unique device for that patient. So that the fact that you make it for a patient unique scan, for example, is not determinant for it being a custom-made device. So this is a very complex custom-made device that we've just discussed with all the elements of Article 23 in there as well.
Yeah, so as we said, there is really a lot of complex cases, maybe, because as it's custom-made, we have an unlimited number of cases that are possible. So yeah, we have really to look at that on a case-by-case to define if, for example, this is a patient-specific, patient match or adaptable device. But we said at the beginning that there is an authorized person that is kind of signing a prescription and sending you the details and information. So here you have the personal data of the patient. So what is the law related to that? I mean, you are getting the name, maybe, I don't know if the name is there, but the dimension, the information, etc., for this person, etc. So at the end, there is some kind of personal data management also here.
Yeah, definitely. So that is something that's also often overlooked. That there will be communication between the prescriber and the health institution that the prescriber works at, and the custom-made devices manufacturer. Because especially for a custom-made device, a manufacturer may even need a varying degree of access to the medical file of the patient. And let's say, for example, I don't know, if we go back to my complicated facial reconstruction with camera in the optic nerve custom-made device, it might be that there's all kinds of things that they need to know from my health records, like, for example, specific metal allergies and intolerances, blood group, because maybe other intolerances, because it's going to be coated by all kinds of stuff that doesn't make my body reject the implant immediately. And also, the very fact that it is matched to me, which is actually a requirement for the prescription, makes it personal data already. Because even if I am described as patient XYZ123 on the prescription to the custom-made devices manufacturer, I am still identifiable because the hospital knows who I am. And if the implant comes back, then me and the implant can still be matched. So even if you are dealing with coded patient information that's passed to the custom-made devices manufacturer, it's still personal data that the General Data Protection Regulation applies to. So as a custom-made manufacturer, custom-made device manufacturer, you need to know under what capacity you are cooperating and receiving this data. So you would need to know whether you are a processor of personal data for the health institution for their purpose of making me my custom-made implant, or whether you are also processing the data for other purposes, because it is also mentioned in the MDR that a custom-made devices manufacturer needs to do post-market surveillance.
Yeah.
And if you need to do post-market surveillance, that is not an objective for which the hospital generally gives my personal data to somebody else, because that's just for making the implant. So if you need to use that data also to do post-market surveillance data, you become a responsible, partly under the GDPR as well, which you need to also need to find a regulatory way to work with, because then it means that you might need to have the consent of the patient that their personal data is also used for post-market surveillance, for example.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more complex than companies often think.
Yeah, and it's important to say that to the manufacturers of custom-made device, because they, as I've said, they maybe think, oh, because I just have a coded information, I don't know who is the patient, so I don't have personal data, but in reality you have. So it's important that you are putting in place a GDPR system, you are having some GDPR compliance procedures also available, and that you can prove that you are getting the data and having can inform if in case there is any breach or on your data information or this kind of thing.
It's a mistake to think that it's not personal data if you personally cannot identify the patient, because if the hospital can identify the patient, then it's still the patient is identifiable. It's a bit the same like if I take out some little data, like for example, I do this, right? So now Erik is gone, right?
Yeah, just because I don't see your eyes, yeah.
No, Erik is not gone. Well, Erik is still here because you can still see it's me.
Exactly.
I've just removed some characteristics.
So it's important here that you are putting that in place. But as we said also for post-marketing surveillance, so there is a requirement. I mean, you can think that maybe because you are having only one product for one patient, etc. So there is no need for you to follow up with this patient because it will be done by the practitioner. But there is a requirement for post-marketing surveillance on the MDR also for custom-made devices. So how are we doing post-marketing surveillance when each of the devices that we are placing on the market is different, is not matching the same characteristics, etc. So is there a strategy here?
Yeah, definitely, and that's also discussed in the MDCG document to an extent, because of course you are never like we said at some point, you are never completely reinventing the wheel. It's not like you're making every custom-made device that you make from a completely different material for a completely different person, using a completely different production process, doing everything completely different. So that means that there are always fields of overlap that you can define. Like, for example, let's say in case of my custom-made cyborg implant, it could be that, they always use the same specifications of camera, for example. They always use the same specifications of optic nerve. They always use the same specifications of the outside of the implant, space-grade titanium. They always use the same production process, that's laser sintering of titanium. And so these are all overlaps that you can do post-market surveillance on. In the end, if you are actually specialized in a particular type of custom-made devices, you'll see that there's even not that much difference between different except that it is really for a specific patient. So the production techniques will be the same, materials will be the same, unless you are making, I don't know, this custom-made implant in a category from bacteria to dinosaurs, then there will be a lot of overlaps that you can do post-market surveillance on. These you have to define, actually. So that's also that. If I were a competent authority, this is what I would audit a custom-made devices manufacturer on as a start, because it really shows whether you understand your own production process, whether you are able to function as a company that does this kind of thing. Because I don't care about the Geppetto that makes 2 peg legs a year. That's really not the kind of risk I would like to regulate as a regulator. But it's really the companies that churn out lots of custom-made devices, because we've established that it's not about the numbers, it is about the way you produce them, whether it's mass production or not. So theoretically, you could you could produce millions of custom-made devices per year. If you're Willy Wonka and you've got enough Oompa Loompas, you can make as many custom-made devices as your Oompa Loompas can churn out.
Exactly. So, I think we covered here all the questions that we can have for that. The custom-made device, as we said, is getting more and more regulated now. So there is also maybe more questions that will come from your competent authority. We have also a lot of information on this MDCG guidance. So don't hesitate to go to the MDCG 2021-3, which is answering a lot of question about custom-made device, and mainly you will also see some examples there that we didn't discuss on this elements on this podcast. We have also your book, so you have the book that you have published. Is there any more information on custom-made device there?
Yes, I've annotated all the relevant articles on custom-made devices with quite a lot of detail. So I think, I'm not sure from the top of my head if I've also addressed the MDCG. Let's take a look.
Anyway, for people that really want to get more understanding of the MDR and IVDR, so Erik Vollebregt has also published a book where there is a lot of information. He annotated a lot of detail, provided a lot of information to help people so that you get really a better understanding of that. I think you have a new edition that will come maybe next year after maybe more MDCG guidance that are published. We'll see. I mean, we have also this IVDR proposal that was published. So if it's accepted, there will be some modification also here. So there is always some chances, but here, you have a book that can really help you on understanding a lot of things on MDR, not only custom made, but a lot of other things. I will place anyway the link on the show notes, but you can go on the Erik Vollebrigt's blog. So there is also the link of all the information for the book. And Erik is also blogging a lot, so he has also a lot of information that is published each time there is a new thing that is that's coming on the air.
Not as much as I like.
Yeah, exactly.
Too much work. Stop sending me work, you people.
I mean,
solve your own problems.
I suppose in a few years we will be in a more stable way, so there will be less maybe to talk about. But for now, there is a lot of stories that we can write and tell to people there. Okay, so good. So thank you, Erik, for that. So for anybody looking at this video, this podcast, so don't hesitate to share that with the people that are really needing to get some information about MDR, IVDR, or medical device in general. You can also go to the YouTube channel and put some comments and questions. I will transfer that to Erik if there is anything that where he can help on that. And don't hesitate also to tell me if you have any question, because custom made, for example, is one topic that people were asking me a lot. The previous topic also that we had, each time there is some topic that I'm putting on the podcast because people are asking me a lot of questions on that, and then I can try to invite the right people to try to answer to us on that. So don't hesitate. If you have any question, let me know, and I will try to organize an episode for you on that. Okay, Erik, so it was really a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much, and I wish you a nice day.
Sorry for the strong language.
Thank you. No problem.
Bye.
Bye-bye.